Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for attending. We're still having a few people signing in at the moment, but yeah, it's 2 o'clock, so we're going to get going. I appreciate everyone who's logged in so far. Good to see so many people here. Well, yeah, welcome to our first cybersecurity conference from High-Tech Security Solutions. As you may have seen from the invitation, we're doing two conferences, one today and one tomorrow. And we're just doing 2 presentations a day of around about half an hour each. The idea being to, not keep you stuck in front of your computer for the whole day or half a day, but just some short, sharp information, which hopefully will add some value to you and give you some insights beyond the barrage of information we get from cybersecurity, well, about cybersecurity all the time, basically, these days. For those who don't know, my name is Andrew Selden. I'm the editor of High-Tech Security Solutions. And you can see I'm joined with Dominique Bowen. She's a media consultant with the company. She'll be helping us with the admin in the background, doing stuff and asking questions that you guys ask. And on that note, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see there's a Q&A button, and you are welcome to send us questions and what have you as the presenters are speaking, and we will answer them. The presenters might answer them during their presentation, but most likely we'll save them until the end and then do a Q&A at the end. And then right at the end of the webinar, if there's time left, we'll catch up on any questions we didn't manage to get. We have a couple of polls that we're going to be running during or actually we're going to do one now, and then we're going to do one right at the end. And the one right at the end, that's the wrong one. Sorry about that. Okay, the poll seems to have disappeared. Okay, yeah, okay, the poll has vanished that I was going to ask you in the beginning, but anyway, that one that you saw there, we'll be asking you at the end. It's just if you hear something that either Craig or Rudy, one of the, or Laura, one of our speakers today actually says, and you want them to contact you for later on, you can just click next to their name and we will share your information with them and they'll get hold of you sometime during the week. Anyway, so that didn't work. If we are oversubscribed, I think you might have seen it in the presentation that's currently on your screen. There is a link to YouTube where we're live streaming, live screening as well. And you'll be able to, or whoever we don't have space for on Zoom will be directed to YouTube. And obviously the presentation itself will be broadcast on YouTube. Will be available for download. We'll send you an email later on with a download. I think that's about it. Sure, the poll didn't work, so we'll have one poll at the end, and hopefully that'll work then. And yeah, we're also going to do a brief review of this in an upcoming issue of High-Tech Security. But that's enough from me in terms of an introduction. Our first speaker very quickly is going to be Laura van der Merwe. She's our product manager at High-Tech, and she's just going to tell you a little bit about High-Tech. And she's going to talk for 2 minutes, and then we're going to hand over to, or I'll come back and I'll do a presentation and hand over to Craig Rosewarne. So Laura, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Laura van der Merwe. I'm the product manager of High-Tech Security Solutions, the magazine which is bringing you today's conference. Just a short overview of the publication. We've been publishing High-Tech for more than 20 years. When we first started, we focused on what was the leading technology of the day, which was alarms and fencing. As the industry evolved, so did the publication. We have changed along with the industry as it moved from analog through to IP, as integration and solution sales became more pertinent to the industry. And today we're incorporating cyber and the IoT into our coverage as well. As the industry changes, we change with it, and we provide our readers with a snapshot of what is happening in the ever-evolving security market. High-Tech Security Solutions is published in print, online, and supported by twice-weekly news briefs. The key readership figures are: our main aim through our monthly publication, annual handbooks, twice-weekly news briefs, website, and our conferences is to provide a resource for decision makers working within the security and risk industry. HITECH is your leading edge security solutions magazine. For more information with regards to readership or advertising, please do not hesitate to contact me on laura@technews.co.za. That's all from me. I hope you enjoy the conference.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Now we're going to get into the presentations, and our first presentation today is from Craig Rosewarne. Now, Craig is the MD of Wolfpack Risk Management, Wolfpack Information Risk, and he's been going on, sorry, my screen's just being adjusted for me. Craig has been in the industry for many years, and he has, sorry, we have a problem here with that screen, but anyway, Craig has been in the industry for many years. He was, Wolfpack has been going since 2011, and he's been leading it. He started the company in 2011, and before that, he was an associate director of Deloitte's Risk Advisory Division, and he ran their School of Risk Management for a number of years, and was leading a team of, I think it's over 400 people at the time. Now, what Craig is going to do is he's going to be talking about what's happening out there. That's the introduction or the title we've given him. As I mentioned earlier on, there's a whole bunch of information daily coming to us about cybersecurity and who's at risk and who's been breached and attacked and what have you. And Craig's going to try and get through that to talk about the real threats we're facing out there, and maybe give us a couple of ideas about exactly what we can do to try and protect ourselves. Because the attacks we are happening, if you look at the latest Verizon data breach report, over 80% of the attacks, 86% of the attacks that we've experienced in our region are financially motivated, which means that they're trying to install ransomware or steal personal information that they can sell. And and 70% of those attacks come from outside the company. We always think that insiders are the biggest threat, but 70% of them are actually outside looking for a way in to actually make money off you. So that's enough from me. I think we've got our thing sorted here at the moment. So I'm going to hand over to you, Craig. And if you can go ahead. Welcome, Craig.
Thanks, Andrew. Just as a confirmation, can you see me? You can see the slides fine?
Yes, I can see you, yes.
Voice check. Okay, good.
I can't see your slides. Have you shared your screen?
Yes, I have. Let me just double check here. I'm actually coming to you live from the ETV offices.
There we go. Great.
There we go. So we're doing a very interesting recording about another victim in South Africa, an individual who lost over 900,000 Rand to a very sophisticated organized crime ring. You should be able to see it on ETV on Friday, I believe. So quite an interesting thing to go through. So what I'm going to be covering today is a number of different things. This is a quick intro, just to provide some perspective to where I'm coming from. I've been involved in cybersecurity now for probably about 18, 19, 20 years. I'm losing track, and very passionate about it. So our organization focuses very heavily on consulting, training, and awareness at government, at an organization level, etc., etc. That one little bottom part on our sort of methodology is the community side, something I'm incredibly passionate about. And I'm going to bring in some elements of what's happening from a community point of view in South Africa as well. So enough about that. I spoke to Andrew earlier about the type of people on the event, and there's a whole mixed bag of people from law enforcement, manufacturing companies, big companies, small companies, etc., etc. So I'm going to do a very quick sort of intro into the psychology, I guess, of cybersecurity, on where things are at in the world, the three different sort of cyber threat actor groups. And then also I'm going to give you a bit of a news update from a South African point of view. I'm going to then dive into, whether you're a large organization, what you should do to protect your organization, sort of lessons learned from the trenches, and also for small companies, what they can do as well. And then, from you as an individual, you working for a government department, you working for a company, how individuals get targeted, and talk a bit about that. And hopefully have some time over for Q&A as well. Just checking my watch. So we're all good to go. All right, so let's do a quick intro. I think the important thing for me is it's not all about risk in today's world. Whether you're a government trying to roll out e-services, whether you're a company looking at the benefits of artificial intelligence and IoT, etc., to give you a competitive edge out there, whether you are an individual wanting to use eGov services, whether you're wanting to start up a business of your own or make some pocket money on the sideline, cyberspace is a tremendous catalyst that can give you a real advantage, and you can literally make huge amounts of money from your bedroom, so to say. But on the flip of the coin, so you can actually end up losing a lot of money and putting yourself in personal harm at the same token by someone sitting in their bedroom on the other side of the globe. All right, so I think for me, the three core main areas are, it all depends on who you are, where you're working for. The first group of threat actors, kind of put them into the black ops category. So we all know, governments have got offensive and defensive capabilities in the natural realm. And this is happening very rapidly from a cyber point of view as well, to look at protecting the overall cyber safety of the nation that they are looking after. So we see government-sponsored attacks. These are the boys with the toys, very expensive, big teams, well-funded, using to do the dirty work, sort of mercenary type organization, black hat hacker groups, criminal underworld groups to perform some of the work for them. Yeah, we see terrorist groups targeting countries using, good old traditional means, but now also using cyber to spread their propaganda, communicate in their cells, etc., raise funds for their cause. And then, of course, we've got global groups of people with inverted commas masks on, the hacktivists that believe in a cause, that form around religious, economic, environmental, whatever the cause is, to actually support that. And some of the actual means that they actually use to do that around gathering intelligence, stealing intellectual property. We're seeing a very strong link between intellectual property theft, where it was normally criminals stealing it, but now governments, not just stealing from governments, but governments stealing from, high-tech type companies to bolster their own economy. As I mentioned, propaganda. For those of you that are part of the banking sector, the retail sector, the manufacturing sector, these all form part of a country's critical infrastructure where the overall safety of the country is dependent on. And of course, as I said earlier, terror funding. We saw a really horrible case in South Africa 10 plus years ago, where a certain government department had millions and millions of dollars of funds stolen from them. And this was actually linked back to a Pakistani terrorist cell. And then, literally a month thereafter, we saw those horrific attacks in India at the Mumbai train stations. Those of you would remember guys walking with AK-47s. Those sort of initiatives require a fair amount of funding. And the scary thing is, was money stolen from South Africa actually used to fund that physical terrorist attack in another country? So we are all just so connected. It's scary. The second group, which I believe is the biggest threat from a South African point of view, definitely from what we see, is the cyber criminal, financially motivated, and these guys make money in any way possible, stealing money, stealing information, extorting people. Of course, having people on the inside that they pay or threaten to assist. That's very much a South African modus operandus. And, from the organized crime all the way down to petty criminals, tata chance, guys just trying to steal as much money as they can. And on the left-hand side, you'll see, that, you've got organized layers of people that develop these tools, sell the tools, the warehousing, all the way down to resellers that resell their particular service. One group out of interest made over $2 billion. These are the guys that created a online denial of service attack platform, which they then sold out to affiliates, and they took a share of the profits. So of course, these guys would launch attacks and extort money or launch ransomware. They made $2 billion. They actually closed the business down. They were clever before they ended up getting caught. They've made their money. They're now going to go and have a lovely retirement on some island, or even buy an island, who knows. All right, and then of course you've got those on the inside, a very difficult group to try and manage from a risk point of view. The hacktivists, you could have someone working in a bank that's part of a economic cause, seeing how much people are earning in the wealth sector, in the wealth category of that bank, and leaking very sensitive information out to further their cause. You've got disgruntled employees, reckless employees, people in IT that take shortcuts in configuring things, or employees that don't follow process, etc. And the largest pool by far is really that unaware group of employees that make a mistake, or the co-source, outsource providers of the organization as well. Even entities such as auditors that come in, gaining access to very sensitive information, and at the end of the day, who knows where that information can end up. So a couple of the sort of methods there as well. I think that creates a very nice backdrop just around the people, the human element, that companies and individuals and governments at the end of the day, need to be aware of and do their best to try and protect. And as you'll see, when I dive into a little bit of detail from a company point of view, you will see that this is by no means a simple task. Okay, we're dealing with a very complex, and as more and more technology is being rolled out, so the complexity is increasing. As more and more companies are dependent on, what's happening in South Africa and around the world now. E-commerce is taking off, is booming, for example. More and more dependency on cyberspace to generate revenue, to stimulate the economy. So it becomes more important. So the disruption of that becomes more damaging to that country or that company. All right, so let me give you guys a bit of a news update from a South African perspective. Yesterday, good timing. This has been on the cards now before 2010. I remember we were still meant to have had this ready for the Soccer World Cup, with sharing of information between different countries. But the POPI Act is here in peace, so to say. So on the 1st of July next year, companies have got a full year to basically become compliant to it. Now companies, there's going to be a bit of a mad scramble to actually become compliant with that. I welcome it. I think it's way overdue. Similarly linked to that as well is we also provided quite a bit of input into this in the early years. Still remember hosting a conference with the State Security Agency back in 2015, where various government departments were involved, and this thing was printed out and given out to the delegates to review at that stage. So this has now been split up in terms of the cyber crimes and the cybersecurity bill. There's been various amendments, but this is now also being pushed forward. The advantage of this is defining the different types of cyber crimes out there, so that we can attach harsher penalties for those criminals that eventually do get caught, that can be prosecuted in terms of this, and then also the various structures that need to be implemented to support, the National Cybercrime Center, for example, that the police urgently, 20 years ago, we should have had these things up and running and operational, and thousands of people trained to cater for the demand in assisting victims. All right, so excited about that. Something that we as a company are personally involved in. We do a lot of community work, do a lot of talks at schools, at companies. So we are working closely with the British High Commission and the Department of Education and UNISA and a whole lot of other stakeholders, ultimately, to create a school cyber safety awareness toolkit. What we've done is we've done extensive research. We've got about a 100-page document now on looking at South Africa. What are the key threats? I'm very excited about this, and pretty soon this is going to be made public. But at a high level, we've used sort of word clouds to what are the key topics that we need to be aware of. What, South Africa there's commonalities in South Africa and the rest of the world, but there's also very unique things in South Africa, such as our, people's dependence on mobile phones to access the internet, as opposed to other more developed parts of the world. All these things had to be brought into, what are the key threats out there? Where are South African, especially teenagers and schools, more vulnerable, for example? So we've done research into that. And the deliverable of what we're going to be creating and rolling out is obviously linked to that. At the end of the day, we've created 5 key themes, an overview of cyberspace. It boils down to people. So there's various threats linked to that, such as cyberbullying and, things like communicating with your children. We found that parents, teachers are very scared in this space. Kids are way ahead of it, of the game when it comes to technology. Securing your devices, securing these applications, whether it's games, social media that are running on these devices, and ultimately protecting that information from being monetized or stolen or causing physical harm to people. That's where the safety element comes in as well. So as part of this, we're very excited. There's going to be 3 games developed, cartoons, posters, videos, workbooks for schools, etc., that are going to be provided. This is not going to become part of the official curricula as yet. It's going to be a volunteer basis. We're still going to be working closely with the Department of Education, and obviously things take time to roll this out. So it won't be part of the official curricula, but it's going to be a supplement and a guide. At least it's something that schools can actually use to make our kids so much more savvy. Another last little bit of news from a South African point of view is we've been running a site called Alert Africa for the last 7 years, I would guess. And we've, about 2 years ago, provided a mechanism to actually report crimes. So we do provide a pro bono service to individuals, schools, charities, etc. Obviously, we help companies, but we also have to make a living. So we do charge companies for incident assistance or consulting work. But we've got a really great amount of resources available. You could go on around protecting yourself, clicking on, for example, applications. We've got, I think over 20 different games categorized there, different applications, what people need to be aware of, the minimum ages, where to go if there's any issues, for example. So we're very excited about that as a site. So you're welcome to, if you need any free resources, to go there, and also the report to cybercrime component as well. All right, so I'm going to have a quick sip of coffee to lubricate the vocal cords, and let's dive into the next topic, which is around companies. So just to kind of give you a taste, for those of you that are involved in any form of governance, risk, compliance, security, IT, etc., and you work for a mid to large size companies, I don't doubt that you would almost have fatigue at the amount of audits and compliance, etc., that you have to have in place. Here is kind of a view around what a typical mid to large size company would need to have in place in terms of having your strategy aligned to the overall strategy of the organization. By the way, the blocks in red in the multiple assessments and consulting engagements, over 600, the last count that we've had with companies, that time and time again come up as the hotspots in companies. Probably looking at your own company, you will see maybe a correlation to that as well. So all the risk management, the policies and standards and communication of that, of course, culture and awareness is a massive one. All the compliance audit reviews, multiple lines of defense in the organization. From an operational point of view, we still, as companies, spend the bulk of our resources, time, money, people in trying to prevent. We've broken this down into different components and categories. On the technology side, and of course, these blocks are just going to be becoming more and more and more as we move from network to cloud to IoT to artificial intelligence, etc. And some of the older things that are still been around for years and years, configuration change, incident management, companies, patch management, still battling in that space to get those things working effectively. Your first line of defense fails, you obviously need to have detection in place. Folks, I can't stress the importance enough of, and I'm not talking about a SIEM monitoring solution here, I'm talking about the actual management of your logs. Are your key devices spitting out logs? Are these logs being managed? Are they being secured? are they being backed up? When we get pulled into help a company, the first thing we want to go and do is to look at logs to see what happened. Sorry, you were into actually capturing any logs. That's a very, very important one. You know, your prevention detection fails, you fall back to your last lines of defense, your incident response. This is also a hot potato. You know, companies don't have a business aligned incident management capability. You know, you should have teams, you should have processes for your highly probable incidents. You should have people trained up, kind of like a fire crew, you know, volunteer from different areas in your organization, outside people that, you know, your co-source, outsource IT providers that can come in and assist you. Time is of the essence. If you get that wrong, you know, you fall back to your last lines of defense, hopefully to be able to recover, and full-blown crisis management. Okay, and obviously something in place to manage it. So to see that, you know, this thing is a complicated thing, being able to understand your various layers, you know, this becomes a very costly exercise for companies. We don't sell these particular types of technologies, but we will come and consult for a company and look at what they've got in place, and also try and realize that you don't always have to go out and buy new things. Oftentimes, if you're using Microsoft or maybe a Cisco or any other sort of other platforms, you might actually be able to enable certain technologies or capabilities, or upgrade something slightly that will give you quite a bit of capability as well. So this becomes quite daunting to protect your organization's critical assets from the outside. And of course, not forgetting people, contractors, employees, etc., sitting on that actual asset. You know, that's a whole new different challenge to manage that through confidentiality agreements and obviously regular checks and monitoring to keep an eye on what's going on in your organization. All right. So if your organization is going to get targeted, all right, where can they hit you? There's obviously the business environment coming in via service providers, your IT technology. If you are running a manufacturing facility or a Eskom, for example, you would have SCADA, industrial control systems, your operational technology element. Obviously, also part of the scheme of protecting. You put in place your cybersecurity, your information security, your physical security controls in place, and ultimately, you've got your people and processes. I think most people, if you have to say, you know, with limited resources, where would be the easiest place to get into compromise, to steal information, to compromise credentials, you know, it boils down to one of these two areas over here. Your people and process is typically your first starting point, and then escalating through compromising individuals to higher trust individuals in the organization to get access to more. All right, so, you know, that's just a very, very quick summary of different areas of attack in your organization. Where do you start? All right, if you've got a fairly complex organization, the first place to start is not here in your technology layers and looking at buying this new tin based on a brochure from a slick sales guy. It's starting here with the business. The example I'm giving here is from a university, for example. You know, really on one page, being able to unpack the organization. What are your crown jewels? Who are your strategic stakeholders that you're dealing with? Who are your strategic customers? What are your key assets, your tangible assets that you can touch and scratch and sniff? Your intangible assets, your secret sauce, your intellectual property, your brand, your reputation, you know, and just mapping that out. And with the senior management team in a room, workshopping this and saying, okay, for a particular university, these are our key stakeholders. These are our sponsors, large corporations, government, local and international students. This is what's very important for us. This is what is strategic to us. And then running different worst case scenarios to say, okay, if an organized crime syndicate had to target us, or if a malicious insider had to leak things, because this is sort of 80% of what's vital to the organization, you can create some horrendous sort of horror stories and worst case scenarios, and you work those things out to say, you know, could be infiltrating the finance department and gaining access to your SWIFT international payments where large amounts of money can be stolen. It could be a massive brand reputation incident that ends up losing massive sponsorship. Work out these scenarios, okay, and get management behind you to support you on this. You'll see that this is not a IT or a security guy alone to try and sort out. You need very senior people behind you to support this thing And once again, this is not a quick overnight fix. This takes years and years to get right in most organizations. The second thing is, based on that, where can things go horribly wrong? What's going to have the biggest impact? And it's not always financially measured. As I said, we're seeing reputational harm, business interruption, harm caused to people. Here's another view of that. For example, you create these value chains. So a value chain, really, at the end of the day, is you're manufacturing chairs and tables. Your core primary activities is, bringing in the raw wood, the manufacturing of that raw wood, creating chairs, the sales and distribution after sales. That's your core thing. IT, infrastructure, technology, HR, finance, these are all secondary activities, okay, that support the primary activities. So based on that previous workshop, pick 4 worst case scenarios. Here you'll see I've just, for example, gone and added in, if this is an insurance company, for example, a thing we did recently for insurance customer, looking at some worst case things. So maybe brokers, maybe the company itself is quite secure, but their broker network is incredibly insecure. Employees, major social incident where maybe someone in HR feeds out sensitive salary information. How are you prepared to deal with that? Compliance, now that POPI is on the cards, for example, or GDPR, if you have UK or EU citizen data to deal with. Cloud, for example. Okay, so pick these, and this becomes, as part of rolling out a security program, these become short, quick win ones to actually address it. So companies sometimes say, okay, well, our procurement thing is using very sensitive information, our procurement process or our SWIFT process or our CRM process, okay? How do we actually understand what processes, what information is running where? When you go into a company, you go and talk to them, just look at network diagrams, they're often outdated, and number 2, they don't really have the business element to that. So a quick little secret for you guys. There's an open source methodology called Obashi, which sounds very Japanese, but it's actually Scottish. And that really is an acronym for different elements of your business and IT layers. So you see your OB is the ownership layer. So here you'll see, for example, there's an owner. You actually want someone that's accountable, a C-level executive or a team, for example. You've got the process. The process, for example, could be a payments process, a procurement process. That is dependent on different applications, SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, Dynamics, etc. That's running on a system, Linux, Windows, etc. That's running on different pieces of hardware, and that is dependent on layers of infrastructure, security, IT, networking infrastructure to allow it to communicate. You map out those 4 high-risk scenarios. So now you've got a view of buy-in from the executives to say, this is what we believe is the most sensitive. You now have IT and business actually mapping this thing out. And then what you can also do is to do data flow analysis. All right, so these guys have actually brought out quite a cool platform, a cloud platform that you can use. It's quite inexpensive from our experience, and you can go and map out in 3D models, looking at dependencies, running different simulations as well. There's a short little video. You can go and have a quick squiz at that, you see. So now you've got a better understanding of what the environment is that we're trying to protect. We never used to talk about this because this is kind of like the drunk uncle, that you don't want to bring to your parties to impress your friends or your girlfriend, for example. But every company has got issues, has got limitations, all right? And be aware of those, whether it's cultural, whether, management don't take this thing seriously. There's no budget available for this thing. And be honest about it. It's very poorly documented, or even the basics are not getting done properly, etc., etc. These are some of the things that we found are coming up time and time again. Okay, be aware of those and address those as part of your remediation. And of course, for a mid to large size entity, you're going to be spending a fair amount of time. You're going to be audited against these things. You've got to come up with a plan. It can't just be off the back of a napkin. This has to align. Yeah, you'll see, for example, you actually bring in the Obashi elements here, for example, the business piece. The cybersecurity strategy must dovetail and support the business strategy and goals. Remember, a risk to a business is them not achieving their objectives. okay? And cyber can come in very quickly. Cyber risk can come in and derail things, cut you down to your knees very, very quickly, okay? And having a transformation, a plan, take your time, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. You're not going to be able to get this done in a short space of time. Obviously, patch up those 4 high-risk areas, but your overall plan, takes time to actually do this thing properly. And then, of course, keep one eye on the radar for new technologies that are coming out. The business is going to be looking at this, guys, that's just one slide on different AI sort of technologies that are coming out to unlock new revenue streams for your organization. And this can provide you additional security controls as well, but it can also open up, your landscape that you're trying to protect is just so much bigger. The tools and the platforms and the services that you're using are just so much bigger. So it adds an extra layer of complexity that you have to be aware of. But you've got to stay close to the guys that are, the technologists in the company that are helping steer the company through these difficult times and looking at new technologies to invest. For the small companies out there, this sort of thing is typically way overkill. You need to look for the quick wins. Kind of a shameless punt. We've been involved in this space now for a long time. Our typical, we typically deal with mid to large size companies when we're consulting and engaging and training, etc. But we obviously help small companies as well when there's incidents in it. And what we've actually put together is a very nice little online toolkit that you can connect to. You do an assessment. There's online training. There's online phishing and a nice reporting thing, cost effective, etc. You can have a chat to us if there's anything that you want done, for a sort of $100 a month type of thing. The last thing, Andrew, I'm just looking at time. I think I've got about 5 minutes left of time. Do you just maybe want to validate that? Because all I can see is my screen.
Yeah, no, go ahead. You're still good.
All right, cool. Quick sip of coffee again. The last thing now is around the human element. I'm just quickly putting a little time on there. So in the olden days, snake oil salespeople would come and sell you all kinds of things, to tonics and lotions and potions, right? And the same thing is happening today now with vendors selling shiny bits and bobs. And, this thing caught my eye the other day. With the rollout of 5G, etc., networks and handsets, people are worried about the increase in radiation, etc. So this company in the UK offered something called a 5G BioShield for, what's that converted to rands? 7,000 buckaroos plus. And basically what it was is just a normal USB stick with a little program that runs in it. It's just total rubbish. So, in times of COVID and other disasters, just be careful that there's always shysters out there that are going to try come and clean up a few bucks from you guys. In terms of scams from an individual point of view, so that site that we run, Alert Africa now, we've gathered so many different stats and been involved in so many different scams. We've tried to find buckets for them. The scam I'm doing an interview today is very much sort of a phishing / account compromise type of scam, along with fake profiles of companies, etc., etc. But please be very, very careful. Once again, the red ones are the ones we're seeing happening a lot more in South Africa, and of course the dating and romance scams as well are horrific. You don't just lose your money, you also lose your heart at the end of the day. All right, targeting older ladies, targeting younger ladies, men, etc. No mercy. The one thing just to talk about quickly is the business email compromise. And guys, we're seeing quite big payoffs here to the criminals. This uses a number of different, sort of a combination of different things. Criminals will either try and break into your email system, whether it's hosted online, gain access to your email account, create a rule every time the word finance or money is mentioned, a duplicate email gets sent to a Gmail Hotmail account. Or they will just use very cleverly designed spoofing emails. We're also seeing from a social engineering point of view that they're getting very clever and complementing spoofed emails with spoofed telephone calls, spoofed SMSs as well, all right? In this case that we're doing here, the lady, as part of the run-up to her losing R500,000 Rand before she lost another 400,000, they actually sent her not a fake, a real credit card from an overseas bank with her name and everything on it. She went to a Pick and Pay and she bought something for 70 Rand to test it, okay? So they actually add these things in to increase the believability. And of course, there's always that urgent request that you need to make a payment now, otherwise this thing's going to lapse, or we're going to have to go back to, or my boss is going to get upset. So these are, a couple of things linked together in this particular attack. And we're seeing, of course, the use of social media and what we term OSINT, open source intelligence gathering, using tools to harvest huge amounts of information off. You can go and visit LinkedIn and Snapchat and Facebook and pull information, but there's a whole lot of other tools that you can use to harvest it as well. Still, we're seeing targeted spear phishing emails as the most common way of hitting people. And of course, if they're putting in technologies to protect the emails, beefing up the email security, people then just go over the top to a number of other social media platforms to target their victims, okay? And using spyware, increasingly spyware is popping up, operating on computers, on phones, monitoring every single communication that you are making. If you're in a smartphone, you've got access to every photo taken, any WhatsApp chat, even of course your GPS wherever you are traveling, monitoring, listening in on conversations. So, keep an eye out for those things. And from a company perspective, people are really so many different areas to protect. People not using strong passwords, same passwords across multiple sites, not having two-factor authentication. No matter how much phishing training we put people through, there's still always those people that fall for the scams, okay? So, but it's ongoing. You just have to keep on and put in place remediation to have compensating controls. If the person does go and click on something, you've got something else that can pick it up. Browsing, not listening to your browser warning that you're visiting a dangerous site. Working remotely now, companies are having to beef up their remote access, their VPNs, for example, as well. Still copying very sensitive information to unsanctioned USB devices. And of course, an increase in telephone, SMS, even WhatsApp spoofing, for example, as well. So very important to spend time on your people. Ransomware as well. At the end of the day, it's someone clicking on something, someone's machine that hasn't been patched properly at the end of the day to allow the ransomware to kick in. All right, and then finally, I think with all the people working from home remotely, just please bear in mind, normally at live talks, we do demonstrations and show things. At the end of the day, you're working in a home. If you're fortunate to have a fairly, mediocre income, you're going to splash out on, ADSL or fiber and smart TVs and maybe a camera system. All these things at the end of the day are connected out to the internet. All of these things are visible to someone anywhere in the world. So when you're installing these things, when you're setting them up, don't skip that very important thing around putting in decent security, passwords, checks and balances, because of course, it's not just these assets that are needing to be protected, it's our kids and that as well, who are mostly nowadays doing their school from home as well, and managing the content, managing the time that these guys, use a terminology around screen time and green time, all right, making sure your kids get out and play in that as well, and using technology. It's a whole topic on its own that I can go to and talk quite passionately about as well. But Andrew, thank you. That is my talk, and over to you.
Great stuff. Thank you, Craig. If there are any questions, please, sorry, that was a bit of an echo. Please use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Otherwise, if you want to, we have a poll for you. The right one this time. I think the reason I didn't get this poll right the first time was what the technical people call PEBCAC. Problem exists between keyboard and chair. And yeah, so anyway, we have the right poll for you now. So thank you. I can see a whole bunch of you are busy filling that in. But yes, thank you, Craig. We don't have any questions in the Q&A. If they do come up before the end of the next presentation, we will either talk to you at the end of the webinar, or we will get Craig to contact you directly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the poll's been going for almost a minute. There we go. There you can see 54% of the people say they haven't been hit by a cyber attack. 15 have, 25 don't know. Well, that's actually quite, rather strange or quite nerve-wracking if 25 people don't know if you've been hit by a cyber attack. And 6 people or 6% of the people say no comments. So I think we can, yeah. But thank you. Thanks for that. We're going to take the poll away now. Okay, next up we have our next presentation, which is by Rudy. Just to follow on from what Craig said there, I've mentioned it during the introduction, but also I'll mention again the Verizon data breach report. That report said that 58% of all the breaches measured over the past, in the 2020 report, which is much higher than before, were all looking to steal personal data. Craig was talking about spoofing your email and your SMS, and that kind of thing, plus your ID number and bank account numbers and stuff, give the cyber criminals an enormous advantage of what they can do to you and sell information they can sell about you. But anyway, our next presentation is now from Rudy Potgieter. He's from Vox. He's the executive head of Guardian Eye at Vox. Now, Guardian Eye started a few years ago, and it was kind of like a offsite remote CCTV monitoring solution, but it's evolved over the past 2 years, and now it includes, it was basically a consultancy, but it also, its nerve center or control room includes IoT sensors, monitoring IoT sensors, as well as your traditional security. That makes Rudy a good person to talk about the converged security lifecycle. That's a nice way of saying securing all your connected devices, because we have so many different devices that are connected to your network these days. It's not just your computer, it's not just your IP camera, or some alarms run on IP as well now. It's not just your security equipment, but basically anything that communicates today is connecting over IP. And if it's connecting, then there's a possibility that it can be used in a kind of cyber attack. So Rudy's going to tell us about our converged security lifecycle. As I said, he's from Guardian Eye, the executive head of Guardian Eye at Vox. So Rudy, welcome. Thank you for the time. And I'll just hand over to you. I can see your screen, so everything looks fine there. So please go ahead.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you to everyone that made the time to join us in this conference. I must say I'm pleasantly surprised to see the uptake. I think it's indicative of where we're going and how the future is looking. I think gone are the days that we have these massive gatherings, and I think it's gone for quite some time and for the foreseeable future. So I appreciate everybody joining us today. I'm going to in advance apologize. I am one of those that are fortunate enough to be still working from home. So if there's a dog crying or yelping or children running around, please excuse me. This has become the new norm, and this is the way we conduct our business on a daily basis. So Andrew, thank you for your intro. As mentioned, I head up a business called Guardian Eye within Vox. Some people might still know Vox as a least coast routing business. We've evolved extensively over the past 20 years to become a formidable force in the ICT space. We've got businesses in email marketing, Microsoft Consulting, still our carrier and connectivity business, and then the Guardian Eye subsidiary that I run. Quite recently, about 6 months ago, I also took on the IoT portfolio, which obviously then lends itself nicely to this discussion that we're having today. Yeah, so just a slide on who we are and where we're at. We're predominantly South Africa based, 13 locations across the country, and we do anything from Microsoft Business to digging up the daisies when it comes to layer 2 fiber service providing. Yeah. So let's chat about network convergence. I think it's a term that's been lambasted and hammered in over the past 10, 15 years. It started off with voice and data joining, more recently video or security joining that network as well. But I think as we move into a new era, we'll see more and more devices joining that network, and we'll see a true convergence. And I think it just makes the job of Craig, my predecessor, a lot more difficult, as you see this plethora of devices and networks all joining together to deliver the services of the future. So we've heard the term of the fourth industrial revolution through and through in the media. Our president hammered it in two of his State of the Nation speeches last year as well as this year. And I thought I'll just pause there quickly and give you my interpretation of what it means. So obviously the first revolution we saw was water and steam, followed by electricity, gas. Then we had the era of computers, electronics, advanced electronics. And I think we're now entering an era where it's a fusion of all of the above. It's a combination of man and technology. It's a combination of AI-powered machines driving outcomes without emotion, and it's there to make our lives easier. It's the era or the decade of smart cities, homes, environment, security. I'm a big proponent of utilizing or reusing existing infrastructure for a different outcome. I'm a big proponent of not spending money on hardware that can be repurposed to drive efficiencies, to drive outcome, to up productivity, to generate income. And the only way we can do that is by taking advantage of this fourth industrial revolution, by taking advantage of things such as machine learning, AI, quantum computing, and reuse existing equipment for better and smarter outcome. I'll give a very, very simple example of that. I tested a camera in a boardroom the other day of a very well-known manufacturer. I'll mention their name, no secret, Cisco. It's called Cisco Meraki MV12 camera. That camera's got a direct interface into the Microsoft Azure Cognitive Services, as well as the AWS recognition platforms. What does that mean? It means I deploy a camera in my boardroom. That camera in my boardroom's sole purpose or initial investment purpose is there to monitor that boardroom for somebody stealing my projector, vandalizing my screen, I don't know, taking a chair or even a boardroom table out of there. But by virtue of that integration into those platforms I've just mentioned, I can now use that camera for other purposes. I can count occupancy in that boardroom. Very, very, very prominent in today's state of affairs globally, where we are not allowed to overpopulate public areas. I can secondly drive efficiencies, green efficiencies, by telling Microsoft Cognitive Services, here's an image of my boardroom. If you don't see a human being, if you don't recognize an object as a human being in that boardroom in the next 10 minutes, please turn off my AC, make sure the lights are back, switch back on. If I've got smart blinds, pull up the blinds, pull up the screen, etc. Ultimately saving the environment and improving my green footprint. In a home environment, if you want to go to that extent, it'll save you money at the end of the day. In a corporate, I think we are all incentivized more and more so, not so much in South Africa yet, but will be in future, incentivized to report on our green footprint and what we are doing to save the planet. And I think that's the decade we're entering. It's the decade of bringing these networks and devices together to drive efficient outcomes. The problem is it comes with a caveat. It is more and more so freely available to buy any device everywhere and anywhere and add it to your network with what sacrifice on your security. And I think Craig alluded to that in his presentation previously. I'll touch on that in a second though. So what are these building blocks for this converged network of the future? There's an obvious network layer. I think the network layer that we are used to is a physical or a radio network layer of past. So it's either LAN, WAN, maybe a MPLS, etc. I think we're going to see more and more additional layers being added to the network. With the advent of narrowband IoT networks, low energy Bluetooth networks, etc., etc. All of those are carriers of data, and all of them have the place for certain purposes. If I want to carry video through a Zoom call like this, obviously I'm going to need a stable connection like a fiber connection, or at the least a stable ADSL VDSL connection. If all I want to do is report on whether my geyser is leaking or not, Why not use something like a Sigfox layer, which is a cheap network, it's a reliable network, it allows me to transmit the right amount of data and then interface that into my network. The sensor layer is something I'm passionate about. I spoke about it a couple of minutes ago, where we want to repurpose the same sensors for different outcomes. You'll see my first little icon there is a camera. I see a camera as no more, no less than a sensor. Yes, it's there traditionally to go and record video footage and catch the criminals or tell you where you've gone wrong. But it can be so much more. It can help me with retail analytics. It can help me with occupancy. We've all, if you're in any way, shape, or form involved in health and safety in your business or exposed on a management layer, you would have seen a multitude of emails flying around and campaigns flying around with the advent of COVID or COVID hitting us like a brick wall, where people are trying to use technology to assist you with that. We can use cameras to identify crowds, how many people are in an environment, to identify temperature, to identify you as a person. Are you allowed somewhere? Aren't you allowed somewhere? In my induction video that I always do with new inductees at Vox Telecoms, I've got a little clip of Microsoft where they talk about their cognitive services. And it's an industrial area where somebody knocks over a barrel filled with chemicals. And the camera or the cognitive services actually picks it up as a chemical spill and then automatically dispatches people to come and deal with this chemical spill. So sensor layer is quite important. It's important to understand what outcome we want to drive with it. Nothing is possible without proper infrastructure and applications. So again, whether you consume it as a service from one of the bigger organizations, whether it's possible to do so, if it's a vanilla flavored type application that you need to roll out, then go look at IBM, AWS, Microsoft, whoever. They've all got very, very decent platforms to enable you to consume and consolidate the sensor network layer to drive the outcomes. Alternatively, look for ICT partners or system integrators like ourselves or whoever else out there in the market that has bespoke platforms that allows you to drive that smart decade of the smart or city of the smart or workspace of the smart. I think we're all reinventing the way we're doing business at the moment. If you asked our CEO, Jacques Dutoy, 6 months ago, what his work from home policy is, he would tell you he does not have a work from home policy. Vox is a business of brick and mortar, and we're working from the office. I don't think he's been to the office in 4 months' time. And I think we're all reinventing ourselves, and we have to reinvent ourselves. And the only way we're going to reinvent ourselves is to rely on technology for us to deliver the same service like we used to. All right. So what else? Some of the trends that we see out there. I did some research, found this on Forbes.com. They got about 25, 30 out there. These were ones that were most pertinent to me, stands out the most, and also most applicable to today's discussion. IoT, top of the list. I don't think it's the take up of IoT has been so profound as we thought it to be, but we're definitely getting there. So what is IoT? And excuse me if you're already aware of this, but IoT is a world of connected devices. IoT is a machine speaking to a machine, driving an outcome without having any people involved. It's an emotionless world. It is a world that works on facts. To take back 10 years' time, speed point at a petrol station is a form of an IoT device. The tracking unit, the tracker, or one of those people have installed in your car is a form of an IoT device. But more and more so, are we seeing these devices become prominent in our own worlds? I've heard of pizza places that are looking at blockchain and IoT to ensure that your pizza is delivered on time and that the temperature in the box is right, or automatically reverse the transaction into your bank account. That's an emotionless transaction. It's got a profound impact on our lives and a profound impact on the business lives. It is not somebody that can bribe you, that can convince you otherwise. It's in a machine using technology, driving an outcome, ensuring better performance or productivity within your business. AI and machine learning, I almost want to say without that, and of course right at the end, quantum computing, the end result would not be possible in the near future. I always use the statistics when I do some talks. We did some research a while ago, and currently, or they said in 2019, so I assume it to be true by now, video globally would generate 2,500 petabytes of data on a daily basis. So that's a lot of data, and it's humanly impossible to watch the data. I think the average statistic out there is that humans are only able to watch 1% of CCTV data on a daily basis. So 2,500 petabytes of data, only 1% is being watched. How do we unlock the Rudy is not in a boardroom portion, or there's a chemical spill portion of that CCTV? Only by using AI and machine learning. It's something I'm personally very passionate about and very curious about. Big data and augmented analytics. So big data is massive. They reckon, Forbes.com reckons that the 95% of the world's data was gathered and generated in the past 2 years. It means it grows exponentially as we speak. Goes to my previous point, the only way to mine the data is by having access to proper tools and to decent computing. But data is becoming a massive business out there. Data is a $73 million business, billion dollar business globally. It's deemed to be. How do we prepare our networks for that? How do we ensure that the data that we've got access to with legislature like POPI, and then if you do international business, the GDPR laws that are out there, how do I ensure that my business is ready for that, and I do not fall foul or fall into traps such as ransomware attacks? I think that I might be saying it in my next slide, but the stats with ransomware and data being held at ransom are frightening. It's number one, underreported in South Africa because there's no law that says you have to report it. Number two, 50% of the businesses out there that even after paying the ransom never get their data back. It's a very, very scary industry and a very, very scary thought. So whether we like it or not, drone or unmanned vehicles are here to stay. I think in South Africa, it's still very, very tightly ruled by law and very tightly governed. I think like any other technology, if I go back 2-3 slides and we talk about the industrial revolutions and as they come along, as soon as something happens, it's frightening and it's scary until we start understanding the potential and we start releasing it. I think our access to unmanned aerial and even maybe land vehicles, as we get to know these objects and get to overcome some of the fears, it's going to become a day-to-day basis. I saw a demo at the Security Expo last year, where drones follow an object based on facial recognition across, doesn't matter what territory. So gone are the days where a criminal is able to hide in bushes, to climb over a wall, to jump in a car. I think as we get more used to this technology, the technology will be used more freely. Goes with computer vision, facial recognition. It's almost part of the second point I used there. Facial recognition is very, very prevalent at the moment in our workspace with the rules and the health and safety issues we've got around COVID-19. The mere fact that I am able to identify a person, measure his facial temperature, check him for health and safety compliance, such as wearing a mask, wearing a hard hat, and then storing that information into a database speaks volumes. I mean, I'm sure everybody's had their fair share and exposure of POPI, but on a daily basis, you see people still contravening and not being prepared for this. As you obviously can see, I wear glasses. I was at my local Specsavers the other day. I walked in, I had to write my ID number, full names, telephone number down on a piece of paper that was at their front desk. They took my temperature and I walked in. The next guy that walks in has got access to that information. What's POPI about? It's about responsible sharing of personal or structured information. putting my name, ID number, and physical address on a piece of paper and handing it to the guy that walks in the door after me is not responsible sharing of data. And then I think all of the above can only be made possible by proper compute and proper network connection. So those are some of the trends that we see. Most of them are here already. Some of them are in trial phase. Some of them are growing on a daily basis. As we all know, the only thing constant in the world of technology are the changes. So these things are growing on a daily basis. But I think it's pertinent and important to take note of these and understand how we ready our network for that. The bottom line of it is you have to move on, or you're going to be pushed out of the way. There is no way of doing business the way we used to do business, and there's also no way of doing efficient business without the assistance or securing technology as your partner there. So I've got some stats in here, and I think I'm just echoing what Craig said before me, or potentially even duplicating. But there's about 14,000 daily average cyber attacks in South Africa attempts. So I think it's important to note that, because we do think we are not important. But I even read a stat the other day, and I might be wrong, but it was something like, on average, 2/3 of the cyber attacks somewhere along the line pass to South Africa. I think we're vulnerable. We've got big business here. We are definitely a target for these guys out there. And repeating what I said here, 50% of ransomware victims never recover their data. And that expands to saying even after they paid the data, so after they paid the ransom. So it becomes very, very, very important to understand and make sure that you partner with a business that understands network security. And if I say understand network security, I'm talking about a advanced network of the future. Then more pertinent to what I'm talking about, in 2016, we saw the world's first IoT in inverted commas malware called the Mirai cyber attack. So what this device did is it essentially targeted devices with default usernames and passwords. So I didn't join Craig's presentation right from the start, but I've seen a previous presentation where he actually randomly logs into a security camera somewhere globally, and you can actually view somebody's footage, just some random security. And I tell you, when I joined the business that I'm heading up at the moment, I had a big fight with the guys looking at some of the stupid usernames and passwords we're using for those cameras specifically. So essentially, this malware went and attacked cameras, DVRs, NVRs, any IoT type device that sits on the network that comes with guessable or predictable usernames and passwords. It turned these devices into botnets, and it then launched DDoS attacks on a lot of famous websites and a lot of famous businesses. It brought down Airbnb, it brought down Twitter, it brought down a whole bunch of these famous social media or tech businesses of the current. But I think it's important to understand that a comment that I made to Andrew the other day when we had a discussion about this is, since I've updated my profile on LinkedIn to include my portfolio as the head of IoT at Vox, I've been inundated on a daily basis by IoT hardware manufacturers globally trying to sell me hardware. And the scary thing of that is, every man and his dog and his 14-year-old son with a bit of savvy can go and develop an IoT device in a garage that gives you all of the benefits that I've been speaking about for the past 15 minutes or 20 minutes. It is not difficult. You buy the components from shops such as Communica, for instance. A lot of times you get the plans of the internet and you can build yourself an awesome piece of hardware. The problem is, if you haven't thought it through properly, you expose yourself stuff to such as the Mirai virus. And I think it's important, when we start looking at our network and our business of the future, whether you are in manufacturing, whether you're in IT business like ourselves and you just want to change some processes in your business, agricultural, farming, wherever you are, it's very, very important to understand, number one, who your supplier is, what their footprint is, what their exposure and experience is, and number two, to partner with somebody that understands the security behind that network. Work from home. Sure, people will have seen this picture before or chuckle or experience it. It is the new normal. We're not going to get away from this. I don't think my statement right in the beginning with COVID-19, that first exco we had sitting in our houses, my study wasn't rigged properly. I actually had that morning meeting in my bedroom, was this is going to change the way we work. It's here to stay. And I think us as corporate South Africa need to understand what that statement means, because that statement means you've just opened up as many people as you have in your business. You've opened up so many branches of your company. And I think we need to just take a second to understand what that statement means. That statement means that Rudy that sits here with a laptop, which belongs to Vox Telecoms, that runs a reputable antivirus and firewall on the laptop, but potentially connects to a network with other devices that have not been secured. I've got maybe a El Cheapo router that I bought off OLX secondhand because I couldn't afford a new one, or my Wi-Fi range extender I bought up the road at the Oriental Mall because it was cheap and it worked for the day, or whatever the case may be. The problem is we are exposing our corporate network to this extent. And I think it's just a very, very vital and important thing to note about. You need to understand that you now, on a continuous basis, not 10 o'clock tonight when Rudy wants to quickly send a mail, every single morning from 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, I'm logged onto the corporate network, and I've extended your corporate network into my home, which is connected to my smart TV, which is connected to my daughter's tablet, which is connected to my son's gaming laptop, my wife's smartphone, and potentially even my irrigation system that sits on the internet at the moment. I think it's just important to take note and be cognizant of these things, and how we expose ourselves to these environments and how we secure our network alongside these environments. Make that statement again, and I'm going to tell you that the world as we know it and the way we're doing business has changed permanently. We have never had to cater for this on as large scale as we had to. If I take my own business as an example, Vox Telecoms has got a service center that operated from a premises in Centurion. Overnight, when the country went into lockdown, we had to lift our entire call center and enable these people to work from home and operate. We are one of the few, and Andrew, apologies, it's not a punt, it's just a fact. We are one of the few ISPs that runs a 24/7 call center. And people get used to that. So if Aunt Susan out in the middle of the Free States, internet goes down on a Sunday night at 10, she knows that she can phone Vox and she can get that service back up and running. And we had to replicate that in every single person's home. So whether you have done it already or whether your business is looking at doing that going forward, I think it's important to understand what the security impact is in your house. We have never really, unless you're a geek like myself, thought of cybersecurity at home, because what's the worst that can happen? They'll hack my phone, but I've got a backup in Google or Apple Cloud, so it's fine. I don't have a problem. I think the thought process we need to think bigger than that now, because we essentially, like I say, Vox Telecoms has got 1,700 employees. We effectively, at the end of March, opened up 1,700 branches countrywide. And had to cater for that and ensure that does not affect our corporate network. Right, that's me, Andrew. I don't know if there are any questions for me.
Thanks, Rudy. Appreciate that. Nope. Looks like everyone is happy with your presentation. No questions. Thank you. Appreciate you coming on and doing that. We have another poll. I think you can see it up there now. Yeah. How prepared is your company for a cyber attack? So if our participants would like to, we'll leave it on for a few seconds. And oh wow, okay. Well, the first few people all said they're 100% ready for the battle. So I was a bit worried, but now we're seeing the poll is actually changing a bit now. Yeah, I know. We're seeing, okay. Well, still 41% of the people at the moment are saying that, okay, no, this has gone down again. Okay, I'll shut up until we finish. But anyway, thank you, Rudy. And to our participants, thank you very much. We've closed the poll, and I can see, or we can see there, 37% of the people are ready for the cyber battle. 43% say they have a few holes in their security systems. And 17% say sometimes they're losing the battle, but they're winning the war overall. And 2% are saying we are losing the war. So I don't know if Craig has had to leave, but if he was here, he might say that 2% of our people who responded were telling the truth. No, thank you. It's actually interesting. Most of the people admit that there's some security holes there. Now, we bring this up as a last poll. If you want somebody to contact you out of the speakers we had today, Rudy, Craig, or Laura even, if you just want to click on that box, and we'll get, this is not an anonymous poll, so we'll get the name of whoever clicked on it, and they will contact you over the next week or over a little, yeah, I was going to say it's only Tuesday, so the rest of this week. So, okay, we have a few there. I'm going to leave that up and just say thank you again to everyone. Thank you to Rudy and to Craig for the presentations today. Thank you to Dominique and Graham who backing me up and keeping things running while I was trying to mess up the polls. And yeah, to our attendees, thank you. We had a very good turnout. We really appreciate you guys. And surprisingly, yeah, everyone stayed until now. So when we log off, or when you log off and we close the presentation, we will actually, it'll divert you to another poll, not a poll, but a questionnaire about how you found the presentation today. And I'd appreciate it if you could just let us know. It helps us not make mistakes in the future and actually make it better in the future. So if you could, when you log off, I think there's 4 or 5 questions that we ask you. If you can just say basically yes or no questions. If you could answer that, we'd really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. And as you may know, we've got another one of these on tomorrow, also at 2 o'clock. And there we're going to be looking specifically at the cybersecurity threats to the physical security industry, looking basically, cameras, things like that, the real physical security stuff and what your threats are for that. And we're also going to be looking at automating the protection of your physical assets. So basically automating the protection of your IoT systems. So that should be a really good day tomorrow as well. So I think that's enough from me. I would like to say thank you to everyone. Once again, those of you who've answered the poll requesting contacts, we'll get your requests to the various people. And yeah, thank you very much. And if you can answer that poll question, that'll come up on your browser when we're finished here. We'd appreciate it. So thank you, everyone. Hope it was valuable. Hope you learned something. We have some people who've put their hands up. I'm not sure. Oh, we have some Q&As now. Oh, yes, to those questions, let me answer it live. Yes, we are going to make PDFs of the presentations available to you. We'll send out an email on Thursday. And yeah, to the others of you who are saying thank you. We really appreciate you, and we hope to see you again tomorrow, and that should be another one as well. I mean, a good one as well. So thank you very much, and yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.